Hey, it's Athena at Gluten Freeology, where I make gluten-free versions of your favorite comfort foods and some healthy stuff too. Hi, it's Athena at Gluten Freeology, and today I'm going to show you how to make some of my favorite Korean dishes. So from November 2019 to November 2020, I moved to South Korea to teach English. And while I was there, I was able to take 2 vacations to Busan, and really, even in Seoul, I was able to have access to really fresh seafood. I used to treat myself to a Norwegian market. I would go buy a sashimi platter and have fresh fish, or I'd buy baby octopuses or black sea bass. But for Busan, there was one meal in particular that I had. Sweet potatoes, Korean sweet potatoes. There was pickled cabbage, which I decided not to make this time, and braised mackerel. So I decided to try my hand after researching a couple of recipes, and this is what I came up with, the gluten-free version. So I hope you enjoy. When I arrived in South Korea, I was super excited. I was so interested in exploring everything that there was to see. I loved the view from my apartment. I was amazed at the fresh seafood in the stores, but really surprised at how high the fruit was. I first made kimchi about 6 years ago, and I've made it about 4 or 5 times since the first time I made it in 2019. Of course, you can always buy kimchi pre-made, but of course, I'm showing you how to make it from scratch. To start, you want to get Napa cabbage and not the Korean cabbage. You also will need daikon radishes and a carrot, sweet rice flour, shrimp paste, ginger, and fresh garlic. So like all cabbage, you need to cut the bottom off, and including the core, and this part had too much dirt on it, so I'm cutting that out. Once you remove the core, I've seen people just cut the cabbage into 4 different parts and salt it that way. But what I did was I just removed all of the leaves one by one, just because the size of the bowl that I am salting the cabbage in is not very wide. So you want to add some room temperature water to a bowl and add a little bit of salt, and then start layering your Napa cabbage and salt along the way. I'm using sea salt, so you just continue until the end, and then let it sit for an hour. After an hour, I tossed it a little bit and let it sit for another hour. And while I was waiting for the cabbage, I went ahead and cut up the vegetables that are going to be used for the kimchi sauce. So you're supposed to use 1 onion. I only had shallots, so I used 2 shallots, a bunch of garlic. Right now you can only see like 5, but I went ahead and added 10 total pieces of garlic and about a large tablespoon worth of ginger. I'm also cutting up some scallions to go into the kimchi sauce, but I'm also setting aside some scallions to go in the actual kimchi. Now here I come with the shrimp paste. In the traditional recipe from Mangchi, she says to only add about a tablespoon of shrimp paste, but as you can see, I go overboard. I probably put about 4 teaspoons of shrimp paste. And then you have the sweet rice flour. The traditional recipes say to mix this with water and cook it on the stove. I've been making this so much I forgot to do that part. I didn't go back and look at the directions. So once you mix your onions and garlic and ginger and shrimp paste, you put that in a blender. Then you mix it with the sweet rice flour. You're only supposed to do about 2 teaspoons, but I did a lot more. And then you need to add 2 cups of red chili flakes. As you can see, I did not measure anything. And add water to this once I finish stirring it all together. So 2 cups of red chili flakes, 2 cups of water, about 1 to 4 teaspoons of shrimp paste, your garlic, your ginger, and 2 teaspoons of white granulated sugar. I did measure that, and set this aside. So now I'm going to cut up the rest of the vegetables that go into the kimchi. I'm cutting the ends off of a daikon radish and cutting it in half, and going to save 1/2 for the braised mackerel I'm making later. And just cutting this into thin slices, then cutting those into matchstick side pieces and setting it aside. Then I'm gonna take a carrot, of course you peel it, cut the ends off, and then I'm just gonna thinly peel it and cut those into even thinner slices. After you salt the cabbage for 2 hours, rinse all of the salt off in water and set it aside, and then get ready to assemble. If you have a large bowl, you will see people making kimchi by putting all of the vegetables together in a bowl and then pouring in the sauce and using gloves or their bare hands. I did not feel like putting on gloves, and I did not want to get my hands dirty, so I decided to assemble my kimchi like I do lasagna. I started with a layer of kimchi sauce on the bottom, and then I'm going in with the Napa cabbage that was salted for 2 hours, layering it with the thinly sliced daikon radishes and carrots and scallions, and then going back over it with some more of the kimchi sauce, and then adding in another layer of Napa cabbage and doing it until I get to the top. Whether you decide to layer your kimchi like lasagna like I did, or just mix it all together in a large bowl, you need to store it in an airtight container. My glass bowl that I'm using has an airtight seal, so I just set it on the counter, covered in a cool, dry place, and then 20 hours later, you want to press down on the kimchi until the top layer is full of the kimchi juice. If you see the bubbles, that's the sign that the fermentation process is working. Soy marinated quail eggs are almost like potato salad in the sense that some recipes you will see tons of ingredients. Other recipes, they will only have 2 or 3. I'm using the recipe that used to come up on this Korean food blog. I used to show my students recipes from that website all the time, and they said, yes, this is definitely traditional Korean. So you just boil your quail eggs for 3 minutes like the instructions on the package. then drain the water and shake the eggs in the pan just to crack the shells. And this is the most tedious part, finding a place where there's air that you can pinch and gently, carefully, patiently peel away the egg and keep going until you're finished. Then you just want to take your shelled eggs and dip them in water to make sure that you don't have any tiny pieces of shell, because you don't want that in your marinade. So I'm using tamari gluten-free soy sauce. I like the Sanjay brand. I think it's the best, most flavorful brand of gluten-free soy sauce. And then going in with just a little bit of rice vinegar, and then adding garlic, scallions, a few slices of ginger, and then the anchovies that I rinsed off earlier. But you don't have to put anchovies if you don't like, that's optional. Then just boil it for another 2 to 3 minutes, let them cool. Scoop out the garlic and the scallions, but don't put the anchovies in, and just let this chill in the fridge for about an hour or overnight before serving. Not only is Seoul the capital of South Korea, it's also the nation's largest city with a population of 10 million people back in 2019. Every Saturday that I did not have to work, I was so excited to go out and explore everything that the city had to offer. But when COVID hit, the trains emptied out, and I went from a mood of excitement to absolute shock and confusion, wondering what did I get myself into. Korean sweet potatoes have a purple skin, but when you cut into them, they are tan cream colored on the inside, but they pretty much taste sweet like your American sweet potatoes. So I'm just poking holes in the potato, wrapping it in foil, and then baking it at 400 degrees for about 50 minutes to an hour. Let your potato cool down before attempting to peel it. Once you remove the peels, you can cut them into slices and then get ready to cook them in a skillet. So you can see the potatoes are laying flat in the skillet with water coming up slightly halfway towards the edges, and I'm just topping it off with brown sugar. As you can see, I consistently do not measure, and so you just want to let them brown until the water evaporates, kind of adding in a little bit more as needed. And then you remove the potatoes, add some more brown sugar and water to create a glaze, and coat that over the potatoes. Life in Seoul reset to a new normal. COVID would sometimes cause museums to close, occasionally one of the more popular malls, but for the most part, since South Korea didn't go on lockdown, everything remained open. You just had to wear a mask. Now, for Busan, this was like a seafood lover's paradise. There are beaches, palace by the sea, so much stuff to do, cable car rides, and some of the best seafood I've ever had in my life. So, because I was reminiscing and missing some of the seafood I had in Busan, this is how I ended up coming up with this video. I researched YouTube and looked at a couple of Korean YouTubers, mainly Manji, and so this is her recipe for braised mackerel. I basically cut up half of a radish into circles, and then I'm going to top it with green onions, pour a little bit of water into the dish. This is normally made on the stove top, but I just did not feel like standing over a stove after making kimchi 2 days ago. For the sauce, you want to finely chop up ginger and garlic. I'm adding my gluten-free soy sauce and gluten-free gochuchang, just a little bit of red chili flakes because I don't want the sauce to be too spicy, and 2 cups of white granulated sugar. Give it a stir, and that's all you need for the marinade for your mackerel. I bought salted mackerel out of the refrigerated section, and I soaked it in water for 2 days, changing out the water and rinsing the fish daily. So once that's done, you want to remove the bones and the fins and just check to make sure there aren't any bones that you can see. Mackerel in general is kind of a bony fish. And so for the dish that I'm cooking it in, I've added a little bit of water to the bottom and adding some of the marinade to the vegetables. And then I'm going to pour the sauce on the inside of the mackerel and then pour it on the outside. I basically put this right in the oven right after I finished coating it with the marinade. However, I wish I had marinated it just a little bit longer. I love mackerel. The fish tastes good. I thought the dish came out great. I just wish I had either maybe made some more extra sauce or let it marinate a little longer before I started cooking it. So I baked this at 350. I don't think it's necessary or a good idea to bake fish higher than that unless you're broiling it really quickly. But I baked it at 350 for about 50 minutes, and I didn't like the coloring. I saw pictures online and I wanted it to have a nice char, so I broiled it on high for about 2 to 3 minutes. But if you do that, make sure you babysit the fish and don't walk away from it because I almost burned it. But I'm just kind of piling everything onto my plate. And so let's taste it. Let's see the mackerel first. Can't really taste the sauce. I just taste the mackerel, which I already like, but I think I would have probably marinated it more. I think I need more of the sauce. But clearly I like it because I'm still eating it. Yeah, it's good. Let me see the radish that was at the bottom. Tastes salty. The green onions are delicious. And then for the quail egg, I'm gonna go all the way. It's an egg. Now, it's my first time making this. Hopefully these are as good as I remember. It tastes like regular American sweet potatoes. This doesn't remind me of the sweet potatoes I had in Korea, and maybe that's why I should have bought the $13 plum sauce. I just couldn't rationalize spending $13 for a big bottle of syrup that I was only going to use once. Still good, just not the same flavor that I remember in Busan. And then I should have cut the kimchi. And I love kimchi, so.